Hello, Serious Survivor here. Today we're going to look at 10 different foods that if stored under reasonable conditions can be stored for decades and some even indefinitely. One aspect of being prepared is food storage. Obtaining and storing or stockpiling food, spices, and other food-related items would probably be at the top of most people's list for those who plan on hunkering down or bugging in. Bugging in will require many different aspects of planning and preparation while maintaining a certain level of inventory and certain types of goods. These categories will probably include first aid, water, and purification, and also the subject of this video, food and food storage. We're going to look at 10 foods that are extremely easy to find and accumulate and also easy to store. Remember the basics of food storing. Try to keep it in airtight packages or containers. Keep away from direct sunlight and moisture, and try to store the items in a location that doesn't have extreme temperature fluctuations. These foods can be obtained at any local grocery store and have the ability to last for many decades, and in some cases 100 years or more. So let's get started. Number 1, rice. If stored properly, rice has an estimated shelf life of 30 years to indefinitely under the right conditions. And rice is the perfect food for storage. And just like honey, rice has also been found perfectly preserved in Egyptian tombs that were centuries old. White, jasmine, and wild rice all have an almost indefinite shelf life. White rice is considered by many to be one of the ultimate survival foods to stockpile. But brown rice doesn't have the same good fortune. Brown rice has a very high oil content and it makes it turn rancid faster. Just be sure to store your rice in an airtight container. You can also put bay leaves in the bulk bags of rice to keep the bugs away. White rice is a major staple that preppers like to put away because it's an excellent source for calories, it's cheap, and it has an extremely long shelf life. Some of the uses of rice: breakfast meals, addition to soups, side dishes, blah, blah, blah. Number 2, salt. The shelf life of salt is indefinite. Sea salt tends to be the healthiest salt, but normal table salt is just fine. Salt will add taste and helps food keep its texture. If it is stored properly, it will never go bad. Although salt is prone to absorbing moisture, its shelf life is indefinite. This indispensable mineral will be a valuable commodity in a long-term disaster, or SHTF, and it will be an essential barter item also. Salt is used to cure as a preservative, cooking, cleaning, medicinal values, tanning hides. Salt has multiple uses and is an excellent commodity to stockpile. Wheat. For 1/3 of the world, wheat is one of the most consistent parts of their diet. Wheat supplies 20% of calories to a majority of the world's population. It is a high carbohydrate food. Wheat contains valuable protein, minerals, and vitamins. Wheat protein, when balanced by other foods that supply certain amino acids such as lysine, is an efficient source of protein. Wheat has many uses from making bread to making alcohol as a leavening agent and for other recipes. Number 4, sugar. The shelf life of sugar is indefinite. White, brown, and powdered sugar will last forever. If it hardens over time, you can break up the chunks by warming it and stirring it up, just like honey. Sugar doesn't support bacterial growth, but don't forget to store it in airtight containers to keep the bugs and to keep the moisture out. Much like salt, sugar is also prone to absorbing moisture, but this problem can be eradicated by adding some rice granules into the storage container. Sugar will also make an excellent barter item in the apocalypse. Dried corn. Essentially, dried corn can be substituted for any recipe that calls for fresh corn. Centuries ago, people dried corn because of its short-lived season. To extend the life of corn, it does have to be dried out so that it can be used later. There are many uses for corn: soups, cornmeal, livestock feed, hominy, grits, as a heating source for corn burning fireplaces. Number 6, instant coffee, tea, and cocoa. Adding these to your long-term storage will definitely improve morale and add variety to your selection. As long as it's not introduced to moisture, it will last. Storage life for tea, cocoa, coffee, it can all be extended by using the desiccant pack or oxygen-absorbing packets and by replacing the items with vacuum seals. So if you have the means to vacuum seal your items, that's always the best way to go. Number 7, bullion products. Because bullion products contain large amounts of salt, this product is preserved naturally. However, over time, the taste of bullion can be altered. When storing bullion, it's best to keep it the same as the other materials, and that's sealed in Mylar bags or airtight containers. It's often used in soups and stews and to make beef broth, chicken broth, things such as that when you're out in the wild and you want a decent tasting meal. It makes a great survival food used in broth or soup to deliver electrolytes to the body. Bullion is extremely inexpensive and if stored in an airtight container can last indefinitely. Powdered milk can last indefinitely if stored properly. However, the general lifespan of it is considered to be 30 years. If frozen in airtight or vacuum-sealed packages, it will last indefinitely. Powdered milk can be found most often in nitrogen-packed cans, and these will last 30 plus years. It is an excellent source of calcium and vitamin D for not just young children, but for adults too. Number 9, soy sauce. The shelf life of soy sauce is indefinite. As long as it's never opened, soy sauce will last forever. Soy sauce is made from fermented soybeans, salt, wheat, and water. The high sodium content of this sauce helps to preserve it naturally. But if you're gluten intolerant, make sure that you buy a soy sauce that's gluten-free. From stir fries to soups, soy sauce is a main ingredient in most Asian recipes. Soy sauce will add some flavor to your food in that apocalyptic scenario. Number 10, honey. Honey never really goes bad. In a tomb in Egypt 3,000 years ago, honey was found and was still edible. If there are temperature fluctuations and sunlight, then the consistency and the color of honey may change slightly. Many honey harvesters say that when honey crystallizes, it can be reheated to use just like fresh honey. Because of honey's low water content, microorganisms do not like the environment and will not breed in it. Honey may crystallize over time, but in times of safety, the gold liquid is almost immortal. According to the National Honey Board, if honey is stored in a sealed jar, it will last for centuries. Raw honey has such longevity that it's been recovered from the ancient tombs we talked about earlier. Honey can sweeten your meal. It can also alleviate seasonal allergies and can also be used to treat wounds and burns. Now, if your honey does crystallize, just place the jar in warm water until the crystals dissolve. So those were foods that can last for decades and longer if the conditions are right. So whether you're planning for a disaster or simply wanting to have your kitchen stocked with non-perishable items that will last through the next power outage or snowstorm, it's typical to remember that when storing foods, keep them away from direct sunlight in airtight containers and try to keep them in an area that doesn't have huge temperature fluctuations. Don't forget to check out the website. Every video I post, I will have documentation supporting it on the website. Well, that's it for now. Serious Survivor, out.